Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Gold Rush. I'm so excited you're here. And this is the very first session of Gold Rush. And our session is on mindset. So you're probably rolling your eyes already. Maybe you are thinking like, I got up early for this. I set aside time for this. And I'd really like to just jump ahead to, how I actually get to gold. And if that's what you're thinking, it's okay. It's all right. Just notice that. But what I want you to know is that between three extremely driven, ultra achiever type, don't waste my time, diamond ambassadors, myself, Melissa, and Janelle, we all agreed that mindset is absolutely essential for this training, and that is the foundation for all that we do. So that's why we put this session first. Mindset bleeds into every area of our lives, and it comes really center stage when we start doing things that are outside of our comfort zone. And there are definitely plenty of opportunities to step outside of your comfort zone around here. So later today, Janelle and Melissa are going to be training you on presenting the business, and they're going to be training you on the nitty gritty of getting to gold and beyond, and then helping others to get to gold. Those two sessions are really focused on the skill set that you need to get to gold. And in this training, I'm going to be working on the mindset. So everything that we do in Plexus comes down to mindset or skill set. I don't know if you guys saw, but the first time that we put together Gold School, when we were prepping everything, Janelle posted in the leadership community on Facebook, and she asked a really simple question. She asked, why don't you share the business opportunity? And she was really expecting to get a lot of answers around the realm of lacking in skill. Like, I don't know how, or I don't know what to say. But what she actually got ended up being gold for me, pun intended, as I was prepping for this session, because most of it was mindset answers. So we're going to take a look at some of your answers toward the second half of this session. But before we do that, I'm going to introduce you to a process that you can walk through on your own to clarify what's actually happening in your brain and how that is showing up in your life. Then we're going to talk about how to make actual real life changes to your mindset that stick and produce the results you desire. Now, I have good news and I have bad news for you. And whether it's good or bad news is totally up to you. So here's the news. You have created everything in your life. Every result in every area of your life is because you created it that way. Your marriage, your family, your friendships, your career, your Plexus business, what you're experiencing in each of those areas is entirely your creation. So how do you feel about that? Think about it for a second. If you're happy with the results that you have, you might feel joy and excitement about that. And if you're not content or unhappy about what you have, you might feel some pain or shame or guilt when you hear that. It's because you created it that way. But regardless of how you feel about it, the fact is that now you know you're creating all of the results in your life. And as Navy SEAL Jocko Willink says in his book, Extreme Ownership, leaders must own everything in their world. Now that might seem a bit daunting, but I'm not just going to leave you there to figure it all out on your own. I'm going to spend this session right now teaching you how to consciously choose your results. And that starts with your thoughts. So is that okay with you? Do I have your permission to show you something that might be new to you? And as leaders here together today, are we committed to being open to learning and applying what I'm going to show you? I see the chat popping up. Good. Okay. Now, when you master this, not only will you be able to change your own life, but you will also be able to teach others how to do the same thing. And considering that you can't get to gold and beyond gold all alone, learning this skill right now is going to be invaluable to you along your plexus journey. So let's get started. I would like to introduce you to something called the self-coaching model, also known as the model. It was developed by Brooke Castillo, and while she was the person to put it together, it is based on universal truths. So you might have heard some of this before, or you just know it to be true. This is literally just the way the world works and the way your brain works. So let's run through the CTFAR model quickly, and then we'll take some time to break down each of these a little bit further. So going down the list from top to bottom, circumstances, these are just pure facts. You have a thought about those facts, then that thought is always going to create a feeling. The feeling is always going to create an action, inaction, or reaction. And then the action will create a result. And because your brain is constantly seeking to confirm its own thoughts or beliefs, whether they're true or not, the results provide evidence to prove that our thought was correct. So let's take a closer look at each of the lines of the model. So the first line is circumstances. Circumstances are pure fact, and they are absolutely neutral until we have a thought about them. Circumstances are something we can all agree on, that door is white, or this computer is on. This person said that. This happened in my past. The circumstances or facts can be won in a court of law. But when you start adding this horrible thing happened in my past, this wonderful thing happened yesterday, anytime you start adding clarifiers, descriptives, opinions, or judgments, then you've moved into the thought line. So when we fill out the CTFAR model worksheet, only facts belong on that circumstance line. The next line in the model is thoughts. So understanding the difference between circumstances and thoughts is honestly one of the most important things you need to learn today. And it's probably not something you're going to get down right away. You're going to have to continue to practice separating the circumstances and your thoughts as you go off after this training and start using the model on your own. As you go about your life, or even as you start thinking about things that happened in your past, remember that nothing that happens is painful. Nothing that happens is wonderful until you have a thought about it. A thought is simply the story or meaning that I make up about a circumstance. Like, remember that I make up about it. Okay, the circumstance has no meaning until I think a thought about it. So for example, has anyone else had an experience like this? So recently, my husband and I were out on a date at our favorite sushi restaurant, and we were sitting at the table, and he pulls out his phone and starts scrolling. That's the circumstance, pure fact. He just pulled out his phone and started scrolling. Of course, my thoughts just start going, right? Without even thinking, pun intended, my thoughts are just running away, and then I feel a feeling and things happen. So my thought was, he is a jerk. He doesn't want to talk to me. Obviously, that's why he pulled out his phone. And really, if I dig down, if I in that moment had the foresight to think about my thought, I would probably realize that what I was really reacting to, really thinking, is that he doesn't love me. Clearly, he pulled out his phone and is scrolling because he doesn't love me. So now I'm irritated. Now I'm angry. But I want to give you guys a little secret weapon that I have. So like I was just saying, what you'll often hear me say is what I make up about that is. So if you start using that phrase, it will help you put your thoughts into perspective. Instead of letting them run like crazy, instead of my head spinning about how he doesn't want to talk to me, I instead chose to say to Nate, what I make up about this right now is that you don't want to talk to me. That reminds my brain that there are circumstances, and then there are my thoughts. My thoughts are the story that I make up, or the meaning that I make up about the circumstance. So when I said that to Nate, guess what he said? Oh, I'm so sorry. That's not it at all. he was pulling up a note in his phone where he wrote down all the roles that I loved last time so he could remember. So, crisis, averted. He actually loves me. He was being so kind and thoughtful. But it was just my thoughts that were getting in the way. So adopt the habit of saying what I make up about that is, you might want to write that down. What I make up about that is, and I promise it will save you a lot of drama and it will help you to clarify the difference between your thoughts and the circumstances. So the next line in the model is feelings. So my feelings are generated by my thoughts. When you choose to have a thought, when you choose a thought to have about something, that's when you're going to determine how you feel. So when it comes to filling out the lines of the model on the worksheet, you'll see there are one-word emotions, and you can circle one or maybe two. And the reason this is simplified to this degree is to help keep you focused on the actual emotion. Because so often you might ask somebody how they're feeling and they'll start giving us their thoughts instead of their actual feelings. They'll start to explain or justify. Instead, we want to keep the feeling line to one word. So like when I had that thought that Nate didn't want to talk to me, that he doesn't love me, I felt pain. But had somebody like interrupted in that moment and said, how are you feeling? I probably would have started explaining that, he was ignoring me on our date. Maybe I would have identified that I was angry. But here's the thing. If you go to circle anger on that chart, always remember that anger is typically a surface emotion. There's almost always something underneath anger that we're trying to protect ourselves from. So I felt some anger bubbling up, but underneath that, I really felt pain and maybe some loneliness. So let's pause our discussion on the CTFAR model here, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into feelings or emotions. So your emotions drive everything. But much like our thoughts, we don't always give our emotions much attention. So I've included this chart in your handout, and I hope that you actually have it printed out. If you don't, print it later and put it on your fridge or put it on your mirror, reference back to it, especially when you're filling out the model, because it's going to help you bring clarity within the model as you're trying to figure out all the lines. I know so many of us grew up in families that really did not teach us these basic emotions. Or maybe we grew up in families where we weren't allowed to express emotion, or we learned that maybe some emotions were scary or not okay. So here today, right now, is your permission to feel all of these things, all of them. And honestly, it's really, truly my hope that even if you never apply this in business, that you'll take this information and you'll hand it down to a child in your life, because this is legacy work. This will change generations. So I want you to notice that none of these emotions are labeled bad or good. And that's because none of these are positive or negative. It's just our thoughts that label them one way or the other. So instead, let's embrace the fact that all of our emotions are useful. So you'll see the second column in the chart that outlines the gifts of each emotion. And this isn't extensive, but it's, to give you a basic idea. But anger, for example, it's probably most often considered a negative emotion, right? But if you look at the second column next to anger, the gifts of anger are assertiveness, strength, and energy. So maybe, the mom who notices her child's got bruises on her arm, she's going to have a lot of energy, strength, and assertiveness when she needs to confront that situation. So that's not a bad thing. All of these emotions serve one purpose in our brains, and that is to keep us alive. On the most basic, primitive level, it's to keep us alive. And that's why a lot of times our emotions don't make logical sense to us when we consider the circumstances that preceded the emotion. So keep in mind that when you're feeling and identifying your emotions that come up when you're sharing Plexus, especially, your brain doesn't care about facts. It cares about whether you're safe from predators, like the saber-toothed tiger, and whether you're connected to a group of people, which will ensure your survival. So as you get stuck. What happens is in this model is you get stuck when you start fighting your feelings instead of validating them, being curious and using their gifts. As humans, we are comfort-seeking creatures. Most of our automatic behavior is done to avoid pain and seek out pleasure. Some of the emotions that we experience are not necessarily comfortable. Even maybe emotions that some people might label as good, like happiness, joy, that might feel foreign and therefore really uncomfortable if we haven't had practice allowing ourselves to feel the feeling before. But here's the thing. Most of the time when we find ourselves stuck in a loop or stuck getting the same results, even if we say that we don't like those results over and over again, it's because we're resisting feeling the emotions that are being generated by our thoughts. So when we get to the feelings line of the model, I want you to be super aware. Like notice when you want to just skip past your feelings or talk about them and explain them rather than feel them. Practice holding back your own judgment as to whether you should be feeling what you're feeling. Like allow yourself to just be honest and say, this is what I'm feeling. When you find yourself saying things like, oh, I don't know why I'm feeling this, or like, oh, this is so bad, or I'm totally a jerk. Why would I feel this when it's, this happened? Instead, especially as you're going through this model, it's an opportunity for you to shift into curiosity, to be curious about your feelings as they come up and just notice them, let them be there. Now, one of the most wonderful things about working through the CTFAR model is that you allow yourself time and perspective to really observe and validate your emotions. So once you've identified an emotion, then you get to acknowledge that to yourself and say, of course I feel that way. I'm going to validate that I feel that way. It's okay. Now, I have some really, really, really good news for you guys. I don't know about you, but I grew up in a family where emotions were very rarely expressed. So naturally, I grew into an adult who was terrified to feel a single feeling, especially the uncomfortable ones. And then I learned some really incredible news. And I'm going to share that with you today. You guys ready for it? Ready for the great news? Especially if you're scared of feeling an emotion. An emotion only lasts for 90 seconds in your body. Physiologically, an emotion only lasts for 90 seconds. That's it. Like I make rice in the microwave in less than 90 seconds. 90 seconds to your body. It comes up like a wave. It crests at the peak and then it dissipates. So the good news is you can do anything for 90 seconds, right? I often hear, and I've often thought myself that like, if I focus on this negative emotion, it's just going to get bigger or get worse. So I really should just ignore it. I'm not going to acknowledge it. And honestly, as an achiever, one of my deepest fears is that if I allow myself to feel any feeling, that I'm going to be totally consumed by it and I won't be able to work or focus. And then I'm not productive and I'm not worthy. So really, let's unpack that. For one, that's absolutely not true. Allowing the emotion to come up and riding the wave all the way through actually allows the emotion to dissipate. It might come back in waves, but it's not going to last forever. And actually allowing it to come up releases your system from having to expel so much energy trying to just stuff it down and keep it from coming up. I actually just, I think it was last night or this morning, I saw a reel from Dr. Brene Brown, and she was giving an object lesson on this. She had a volleyball, and she was like, this is, basically a negative emotion that I don't want to acknowledge. And she had a bathtub full of water. and she was trying to push the volleyball under the water, right? It takes so much pressure to try to push it down and keep it down, and it just keeps coming back up. It takes so much energy. So if instead we let ourselves feel the wave of emotion come to its peak and then dissipate, we're not expelling so much energy trying to keep it stuffed down. So that's one. And then two, the great news is you can actually experience an emotion and still be productive. So like courage, for example, sharing Plexus takes courage because you're putting yourself out there in a very vulnerable way. Vulnerability means that you could get hurt. So naturally, you're going to feel fear because your brain is trying to keep you safe. It doesn't want you getting ostracized from your group of people that are going to keep you safe. Because if you're ostracized, then you're going to die. That's literally how your brain like makes sense of it, right? So, but courage does not exist without fear. So it's not the absence of fear, but it's feeling that fear and taking action anyway. So if I decide I'm going to reach out to 5 people to set up a, business meetings with them to share the business opportunity, and then I feel the beginning of a fear wave, like I haven't done anything yet. I've just decided I'm going to reach out to people, but that fear wave starts to come up. I have 2 options. I can either avoid it or I can allow it. My brain is naturally inclined to avoid the fear. So the path of least resistance is to avoid setting up those meetings. I don't want to feel the full wave of fear, so I stop short of actually doing that task. I find excuses and reasons and other things to focus on because I don't want to feel that fear. Now, if instead I choose to acknowledge that I'm feeling fear, I allow it to come to the surface, and then I ride the wave all the way through, the fear will subside. So I can choose to set up those meetings at any point on the wave of fear and prove to my brain that I did not die. Got it? So that's enough about feelings. We're going to hop back into our discussion on the CTFAR model. One moment, I'm going to close the door. Okay. So we've hit circumstances, thoughts, feelings, and now we're on to the next line of the model, which is actions. So all of your feelings will drive certain actions, inactions, or reaction. So think of the difference of when you're feeling caring, what you might do, versus when you're feeling angry, what you might do. So those actions are going to be very different based on what you're feeling. So going back to the example with Nate at the sushi restaurant, I thought he doesn't want to talk to me. So I felt pain. And when I'm feeling pain, I tend to lash out with like sarcasm or criticism. I give short answers, or maybe I reach for my phone to distract myself from feeling that pain. Whatever they are, your actions will always determine your results, right? So the last line of the model is results. What you do is going to create a certain result. Now, remember that our brains are constantly seeking evidence to prove that our thoughts are correct, even if they're not. So our results will ultimately confirm our original thought. So again, at sushi, if my actions are that I get snippy with Nate or I grab my phone too, then the result is Nate doesn't want to talk to me. I proved myself right. Ding dong, like, hello. I just proved my initial thought. If my thought is he doesn't want to talk to me, so then I am on my phone, I'm proving to my brain that I was right. He doesn't want to talk to me. And that's that. I just created a result in my life. And you do this every single day in every area of your life without even thinking about it. Now, here's the rub. Most of the time, we notice a result in our life and decide that we want to change it, right? That's our natural response is, we look at the action and say, I'm going to change what I'm doing here so that I'll get a different result. But the problem is we don't go all the way back up the model to our thoughts, which is really the first domino that set off this chain reaction that brought us to the result in the first place. So now we are going to practice taking the model, applying it to our current life, and practice choosing a new thought to create new results. So this is not a one and done kind of thing. You're going to have to practice. You're going to need to do this work every single day. So print extra copies of this, or if you need to just, you can always do this on the back of a napkin, on a scrap piece of paper. Just remember CTFAR and you can write it out, but you're going to want to do it day in, day out in every area of your life. As we begin to fill in the sheet, we can start anywhere on the model and then figure out the rest. So that's really important. As I go through my examples, I don't want you to think that I figured it out in order. It's actually kind of like a moving target sort of thing. So you can start anywhere and then fill out the rest. You don't have to start with circumstances and go in order. Sometimes maybe we notice the result in our life first, like we were just talking about. So you can start at your result and then work backward, like what actions are leading to my results, and then, what feelings and so on. Maybe you notice the feeling first, and then we can work around the model and say, what thought am I having that leads to this feeling? You guys get the idea. So at the very beginning, I mentioned the Facebook post about why you're not sharing the business with people and all the mindset answers that had me just totally ready to hop in and do a group coaching session. So I compiled the most common answers here, and we're going to look at each one of them together, and then we're going to plug them into the CTFAR model. Now, remember, I got your responses kind of out of context. So for most of these, I made up a circumstance that I know could potentially trigger those thoughts. But the circumstance that triggers this specific thought for you might be completely different. But keep in mind that the circumstance actually does not matter. The circumstance could truly be anything. We're going to be examining the thoughts, feelings, actions, and results that follow. So let's start with the first comment, and the one that I saw most common. And it is, I don't feel successful, so it's hard for me to confidently talk about the business. So let's break this down into the CTFAR model. I made up the circumstance that potentially leading to this thought that I'm not successful would be the circumstances, I am not an Emerald ambassador. So my thought that I have about that is I am not successful. And when I think a little bit deeper about that, if I'm not successful, what I'm really thinking is I am a failure. And when I have that thought, I feel pain. So the actions I take when I feel pain, I avoid working plexus. I don't follow up. I speak with insecurity. I seek out others who are in the same boat so I can commiserate with them. And as a result of all of that action and inaction, I don't grow an Emerald team, which then just goes back, remember, to confirm that my thought that I am not successful and I'm a failure is true. So now we're ready, as we move into the bottom half, we're ready to create a totally new experience. My first question here is, what does success feel like? I'm asking myself, what does success feel like? If my thought is that I'm not successful, what does it feel like? We can start there when we rebuild the model, back into our favor. So you could also start with, what new result do I want? And then work backward from there. So looking at the bottom half, what I ended up coming up with is my new thought is I am becoming. Success is a process of learning and growing. So when I think that thought, remember the circumstance hasn't changed. I'm not an Emerald ambassador, but I'm becoming. Success is a process of learning and growing. So I feel joy. And when I feel joy, I seek out feedback and I apply what I learn. I find solutions to problems. I book business meetings and I host events so that I can get better. And then the result of all of that action is that I inspire others to join me and eventually grow an Emerald team. And that result goes back to prove my thought that I am becoming, and success is a process of learning and growing. Before we move on to the next example, I want to share some perspective on success and what this might mean to you, because this came up so often. Success can be so elusive because it could be measured by what others think of you, and you have no control over what others think, right? You could also potentially be using the pursuit of success, and you keep moving that target as a distraction from other areas of your life where you might not want to feel, pain or fear. So you just keep chasing something so that you don't have to look at, the past or what's happening here because it's painful. I don't know about you, but I have heard forever, like every article on Success Magazine, like every single thing about entrepreneurship forever, that you are supposed to have your own definition of success. But honestly, like try as I might, I have never been able to nail that down. And why? Because as a super achiever, Enneagram 3, long time ago, I subconsciously attached my sense of personal self-worth as a human being to the idea of success. So let this be your big, giant red flag. I do not want any one of you guys leaving here today. I don't want you like living a single day on this earth longer without just considering, maybe exploring the possibility that you might be chasing this really elusive idea of success as a way to validate your own worth. But the truth is that you are valuable. You have value. You have value. Not for all of the things that you accomplish, not for going gold, not for being a senior silver in Plexus, not for the meals that you cook on any given day, or the grades that your kids bring home, or how great you did helping the PTA. That is not why you are valuable. You are valuable because you are a human being. How many parents are here on the training today? Raise your hand or put it in the chat. Or if you're not a parent, you have a niece or a nephew or a friend's kid that you just loved, dearly. Think back to the day that your child was born, or that child was born. Were they valuable? Of course they were. They were the most precious, valuable, loved little creatures on the face of this planet. And they didn't have to do a single thing to be valuable. Now, the big secret, the big thing I want you to remember today and going forward is that you are that little baby. You are precious. You are valuable. Nothing has changed at your core. Nothing. I want you to let that sink in. I want you to write it down. I want you to remind yourself that I am valuable. Okay. And honestly, you could be Celeste Gwynn level successful, but you will never feel successful until you believe that you're valuable. You'll just keep chasing success, elusive success, so that you could, maybe feel successful, feel valuable, but it's never going to happen until you own it. Okay, on to the next example. I am not credible because my paycheck isn't big enough. So to start at the top of the CTFAR model, I actually had to Google the definition of credible, right? Because I'm like, so what does that actually mean if I'm not credible? Credible is the quality of being trusted and believed in. That's what Google said. And that made a lot of sense, right? The quality of being trusted and believed in. So now I can maybe see a little more clearly what I'm actually reacting to. So on the top half, the circumstance I made up that I think could lead to this thought would be my paycheck in January was $300. The thought that I choose to have about that is I'm not credible, meaning I'm not trustworthy and people don't believe me. When I have those thoughts, I feel anger. And remember, anger is, an top level emotion that's probably protecting me from something. And so really under that anger, I feel shame. When I feel anger and shame, I steamroll people, trying to convince them to believe me. Maybe I hide my business. I avoid talking about it, or I act in a way that might seem untrustworthy or a little shady. And when I do those things, the result is people avoid me. They don't believe me. They question my motives. And maybe I sign people, but they're ashamed of their Plexus business or their Plexus purchase, and they don't want to share. So those results go back to prove I'm not credible. I'm not trustworthy. People don't believe me. So as we move into the bottom half, where we are choosing a new experience, I want to point out that the new thought is usually one of the last things that I actually come up with. So I'm using the other lines to create a new thought that aligns with the results that I want. Also, notice that I'm not simply just writing the new thought as the opposite of the old thought. And that's because it's really not true enough yet. Your new thought has to be something that your brain can accept as at least mostly true. We can't just go from 0 to 60 when it comes to changing our thoughts, or we might say something or think that thought, and our brain's actually going to go, liar, not true, right? We have to baby step our way from the old thought toward a new one. And that takes time and repetition of the new thought in order to make it stick. So the bottom half of this, remember, I didn't go in this order, but we're just going to read it in order. My new thought is, I am legitimately making money. $300 extra a month is incredible. Circumstance didn't change. My paycheck in January, still $300, but I am legitimately making money, and $300 extra a month is incredible. It's getting a little bright in here. Sorry, guys. About that, I feel passion. And when I feel passion, I speak with enthusiasm and confidence. I tell all of my friends about this business, and the result is I sign several people who are interested in making $300 a month, and they're excited to post and share. And that result goes back to confirm that I am legitimately making money, and $300 extra a month is incredible. You guys kind of see how this is going? Okay, next comment I saw a lot of, I don't want them to think I'm just trying to make money off of them. So the top half here, the circumstance that might lead to that thought would be someone asks how much it costs, right? This happens every day in the process of recruiting. Someone asks how much it costs. My thought is, I don't want them to think I'm just trying to make money off of them. So then I feel guilt. And when I feel guilt, I show them the smallest welcome pack possible. I give them extra coupons. I don't talk about the business because then they'll definitely know that I'm going to make money. And as a result, they either don't sign up, so I don't make money off of them, or they do sign up and then they cancel next month because they can't afford it. And that all goes to confirm my original thought. I don't want them to think I'm just trying to make money off of them. So do you see how this is actually about my survival as a human being? Do you see like the feelings, that come up? I don't want to be rejected. Like my brain at its ultimate basic primal level cannot be rejected. It's so scared because then I would literally die. I would be rejected from my group of people and I would starve to death or be attacked by a saber-toothed tiger or whatever. So my brain is like, no, feel guilt, feel fear. Don't do that. You want to survive. So we're constantly having to reassure our brains, like, it's okay. I'm going to choose this different thought. Like, thank you for trying to keep me safe, but I'm going to choose this different path, right? So my new thought, when I want to change the result, remember circumstances, someone asks how much it costs. My new thought that I'm choosing is I am honest, caring, and compassionate, and I love to help people. So when I have those thoughts, I feel joy and I feel love. And when I feel joy and love, I share confidently and I offer open guidance to, help them make their decision. I calmly explain what the best deal is. And I ask questions from really a truly open and honestly curious place. When I do that, I end up signing someone who feels supported and grateful for my guidance. And they're open with me about their goals and their hopes and their dreams. And that result confirms I am honest, caring, and compassionate, and I love to help people. Okay, last comment. Someone left, so I'm not a good leader. So I had to think about the circumstance around this. Like, what's the actual circumstance that would lead to this someone left? Like someone left, like they just disappeared, they're gone forever. What does that mean? So maybe worst case scenario, honestly, worst case scenario, someone canceled their account. This could also be someone turned off their subscription or something, right? But the circumstance here is someone canceled their account. And my thought is, I'm a bad leader. When I feel that, or when I think that, I feel pain, or what did I circle? Fear, maybe pain too. And when I feel fear, I'm going to have this awkward conversation with them the next time I see them. I maybe let overwhelm totally freeze me when I'm signing a new person. I don't cast vision to that new person. I might avoid doing anything that could be criticized. And then maybe I resent the person that canceled their account, and I end up seeking validation from other people. Like it was her, she was crazy, right? It was her, not me. And all of that results in, I don't grow leadership skills. I don't attract new driven leaders. I drive people away because of my negative conversations, and my team growth stops. And that all goes to prove I'm a bad leader. So instead, we're going to shift into a new experience, a new result that we want. So circumstance stays the same. Someone canceled their account. My new thought is, I am imperfect, and that's okay. Everything works out for my good. About that, I feel love and maybe some fear still. You know, it's a little scary to feel imperfect. But when I feel those emotions, I continue a fulfilling relationship with that person because I still love them. I validate my own experience instead of seeking it from others, and I feel my feelings. And I courageously seek feedback on how to improve. And as a result of all of that, I grow my leadership skills and my team grows. That result confirms I am imperfect, and that's okay. And everything works out for my good. So are you guys seeing how this works and like getting a feel for how to work through the model? I hope you are. So now it's your turn. Remember how I told you guys, this is not something you're going to do just today and then be done with it. You are constantly thinking thoughts and creating results, which means you will have reasons every day to practice the model. And as you become a master at doing this yourself, you're going to find that you can help others become aware of their own thinking and how it's creating results in your life. And honestly, the really cool thing is like being able to do this with your kids and helping them see like, oh, I'm having this thought. So then I feel this way. And, and hey, extra bonus cherry on top, then you get to help your team do it, right? It's really a valuable skill that you can develop learning how to do this and then coach your team as your team grows on the, how to shift their mindset using CTFAR. So everything that we do in Plexus comes down to either a mindset. Ooh, hopefully I'm still on. It said I was signed out. Either a mindset or a skill set. And to get to gold and beyond, you're going to have to master both areas, your mindset and your skill sets. So now you're one step closer to mastering your mindset. And, we're just about done here. You're going to get a 15-minute break. But during your break, take a few minutes, use the restroom, get a drink, whatever. But then I want you to sit down with a piece of paper and fill out the model with this circumstance on the screen here. You might have already read it. But later today, you're going to be challenged to set meetings to present the business to at least 3 people this week. Okay. So ta-da, you've already had a thought and a feeling about it. It happened so quickly. So congratulations. You now have an opportunity to plug it all into the model and choose a new thought and result. So the circumstance is, I was asked to schedule 3 meetings to present the business this week. That's the fact. That's the circumstance. Now you get to go fill it out. All right. Thanks for being on with me. I appreciate your time. I loved putting this together for you and presenting it to you today. So happy CTFARing.